Hey, welcome to the Gull-Mouth Action podcast. I'm joined by Sam Morton, who was at the Arsenal game at the Emirates. So we'll start just by having a quick look back, Sam. We look at the result and you think 2-0, 2-1 defeat against Arsenal is no disgrace. They're obviously the Premier League leaders on a seriously good run of form at the moment, Arsenal. But it was the performance, it was the start of the match which caused Brighton's main problems, wasn't it? They didn't quite get going.
No, it was a bit of a demolition job when you look at the expected goals and the possession and just the kind of domination that Arsenal had in that first half, and all that they were really missing was the end product, because they were just one goal up at half time. But in all honesty, they should have been 6-0 up, really, with the chances they had. They completely put Brighton to the sword, and they couldn't get out of their own box, let alone create any chances. I think their first shot in the game came after about an hour, I think it was. So yeah, it was really, really tough day for them against an Arsenal team that's obviously really impressed this season. They're top of the league for a reason, and I know they've had a bit of a wobble lately, and perhaps have got a couple of results that wouldn't have been ideal, with Man City breathing down their necks. But once again, they showed their kind of just quality all over the pitch, and it was particularly Bukayo Saka that was causing all sorts of problems for the whole Brighton defence, really.
Such a good player, isn't he, Saka?
Yeah,
He's a dangerous player.
Yeah, he was really causing the defence a real headache, as he's done to Brighton many a time in the past. Trossard as well, which obviously would have been a bitter pill to swallow for the Brighton fans. He was causing all sorts of issues too. Coppola especially really struggled up against Trossard, actually, and Kadioglu had one of his poorer games since coming back into the team from injuries. He's been really consistent, but I felt he really did struggle as well. And De Kuyper obviously was one of those to get taken off at half time, and things did improve at the break with Minter and Weaver coming on. Brian Grudy was the other one to get taken off. He couldn't get involved in the game at all, and he was replaced by Minter, who did add a bit of energy into the game and gave Brighton a bit of something they were missing in that first half, and they were able to get forward and cause Arsenal some problems. And it did suddenly get really nervy for them. Didn't see it coming at all, but when Diego Gomez halved the deficit for Brighton, obviously after they went 2-0 down, suddenly it was 2-1. You felt they were in the game, and obviously Minter then forced David Raya into an incredible save, really one of the saves of the season, to be honest. So somehow they managed to nearly get a draw out of a game. They were absolutely battered for most of it.
Yeah, no, it was one of those performances. Slight change of formation. He played a 3 at the back, wasn't it, this time? What did you make of those changes? Obviously, Coppola coming in, keeping his place after the Sunderland match.
Yeah, it was an interesting one, wasn't it? Because I think it would have been harsh to drop Coppola and Boscali after their clean sheet against Sunderland. So you felt that it was a difficult situation for us to be in, with Van Heck coming back from an illness, Dunk obviously coming back from suspension.
Yeah.
So you kind of felt that you kind of have to start both of them when they're obviously fit and available. But at the same time,
it's your best two defenders, isn't it? It's
exactly
slightly different from facing a Sunderland attack to an Arsenal attack, isn't it?
Exactly. So yeah, you felt they both had to come into the team. And obviously you just went for a bit more stability in defence with the third centre-back. And you could argue that it worked in a way because of how dominant Arsenal were. And like I said, they should have scored many more goals than they did. You could argue that if he had have been a bit more open and less defenders on the pitch, they might well have conceded.
Torn to pieces, yeah.
They could have been, because Arsenal were really on it, to be honest. They really were playing the ball around with a lot of quality, and just Brighton couldn't get near them, really. They were chasing shadows a little bit. So I think having the extra man in the defence probably did prove to be the right thing. But I think Hertzler did acknowledge that he perhaps didn't get the right personnel. And I don't think it was the right decision to have Jorginho as the lone striker or the most forward striker, because he's just not a striker. It's not his best position. It's not where you get the best out of him. And he really did struggle in that first half. And obviously things went bad to worse in the second half when he put the ball into his own net.
Yeah. He was under no pressure either, was he? It was sort of it was just all on his own at the near post. Just one of those unlucky situations, I guess.
Yeah, it was. It was. It was a bit of a bizarre one because, as you say, not under any pressure really. He could have just headed it out of the box, or at least part of the way. But he put it to his own net, gave the keeper no chance. But to be fair to him, he did recover well from that, and it was a nice bit of hold up play from him before the Gomez goal. And it was a lovely flick that he did, a little backheel flick to Minter before that shot that was brilliantly saved by Raya as well. So he definitely improved, but I feel like that's what he's best at: the hold up play, the flick on. He's not the target man, so I feel like not to have a striker on the pitch made life a bit more difficult for Brighton. Really, obviously Welbeck and Costellas came on really late in the game, where it was almost a bit too late. So it's kind of shades of that Liverpool game all over again, really, where Hudson didn't really gamble early enough, maybe, because as I say, they were in the game despite being battered for most of it. They were in the game, had a goal back, and if you then thrown on a couple of forward players, and you never know. But yeah, obviously it wasn't to be on the day.
Yeah, and Tommy Watson, he came on late as well, and yeah, these late substitutions are, it doesn't make it easy for those players coming in to really make an impact on the game, does he? He obviously doesn't think Costellas is ready to start at the moment either, especially with Welbeck being injured. He goes with Jorginho as the furthest forward, and Costellas, he's having to be patient, isn't he? He's not really getting his chance to really show what he can do. Yeah.
No. Obviously, we've seen glimmers from him. Obviously, he got that goal at Old Trafford, didn't he? And there was kind of maybe an expectation that he'd kick on from there and he'd get some more minutes, but it hasn't really worked out that way. And obviously, with his compatriot in Tielemans being out for the season, that obviously then puts him higher in the pecking order, and you'd hope that he'd get the chances to play. But obviously it is just a bit bizarre because obviously you'd see him as being the backup to Danny Welbeck, but then Welbeck's been on the bench a couple of times recently, as understandably his minutes need to be managed as well. You can't really expect Welbeck to play every single match at the age that he's at. But then you'd think surely Costellas should be there if Welbeck's not. So to have them both on the bench is a bit of a head scratcher, and perhaps leads you to think that they might be tempted to go into the market for a new striker in January if they feel there's more reinforcements needed for these kind of games. Because, as I said, if you're relying on Jorginho to be your main striker, it doesn't bode too well, really, because he's not that kind of player. He thrives when he's number 10 and he's setting up players around him.
Yeah. Herzella's got very limited options there at the moment. I sort of feel as though they never really replaced João Pedro. Jorginho has been sort of entrusted to try and fill that void, but as you say, he's struggled when he plays further up the pitch. So do you think that is an area that Brighton should really make a move for in January?
Yeah, I think so. I think it'll be interesting to see what happens with Evan Ferguson as well. Seemingly not in Roma's plans for the rest of the season. So if he can come back in and hopefully with a bit more kind of confidence, or it's difficult, isn't it? Because I mean that might not do his confidence much good in itself, that he's obviously not in Roma's plans and obviously not showing the kind of the progress that we all expected when from the early days at Brighton, when he was scoring goals for fun. It hasn't really worked out, so it'd be interesting to see how his confidence is doing and if he can kind of burst his way into the team, because he hasn't won over Hertzler yet, and that's the reason why he went out on his loan deal. So it's going to be a real tough ask. So it'd be interesting if he can come in and stake a claim. But I wouldn't be surprised if Brighton are keeping their eye out for someone that's available. But as we know, strikers are one of the hardest positions to sign on the pitch, and January is the hardest time of the year to do transfers, really. So it's a difficult one. I'm not necessarily expecting any major deals in January, but I wouldn't be surprised if Brighton are doing their best to see if they can bring someone in to kind of just improve things at the moment. Because obviously 5 games without a win now, it's looking a bit sticky in that sense. They would want to get back to winning ways as soon as possible.
No, I agree. I think a striker could they could really benefit from that this season. Tielemans' injury was a blow, but again, he was unproven, wasn't he, at Premier League level? They sold João Pedro, and then the 2 Greek teenagers came in, and they weren't really ready to help Herzella sort of this season. So yeah, interesting to see. One to keep an eye on throughout throughout the transfer window. So yeah, as you say, they'll look to get back on the winning ways against West Ham this Tuesday. It's a big game for them now, isn't it? They really need to. They've got West Ham and then Burnley in quick succession, and they need to get some points on the board. Otherwise their season's in danger of just sort of petering out, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. There's two big games coming up. I think West Ham are really kind of struggling. You look at the table and they've been cut adrift really. There's 5 points. I think they're looking at the 5 points away from safety at the moment. So it's a big game for them too. I mean, they're gonna be looking at this as a chance to try and close that gap on Nottingham Forest and Leeds, because they will look at Brighton's form and think, yeah, this is a game that they need to be getting something out of as well. So, and obviously they did really recently, obviously get a draw at the Amex, and that was probably 2 points drop for West Ham really, because they obviously took the lead so late on, and then obviously conceded that late equaliser. So they've shown they can cause problems against Brighton. Obviously this will be at their place, which will probably make it a little bit more tough for Brighton. But I think Brighton have got to go there as the team to kind of take control, assert their authority on the game, and to pick up a much needed 3 points to get the confidence and form going again. And this is the perfect game to do that against a team that's really struggling down the bottom of the table. And obviously, Burnley straight after, just a 1 point below West Ham. So another big game. And we know that Brighton often drop points in these games and don't necessarily show what they're made of and really take control of these games. But I think it's really important that they do that after not picking up points against the bigger teams, which they often do. They've not been able to do that against Liverpool and Arsenal. So now, and obviously Villa as well, they lost 2 recently. So I think now they really need to make up for that and get 2 big wins and get the form and confidence going again.
Yeah. One of the surprises against Arsenal was Yankuba Minte was dropped to the bench. Do you think he should be back in the starting 11 at West Ham?
Yeah, I think so. I think both of us have been a bit underwhelmed by his performances of late. I think he's been quite quiet, hasn't really had a big impact on matches. So I feel like it wasn't perhaps the most unfair decision to leave him on the bench this time round.
I agree. Yeah.
But I think the way that he performed when he came on as an impact sub was really impressive, and is kind of blistering best really in that.
Yeah. And a whisker away from a goal,
whisker away from a goal. It was a great shot, curling right into the top corner. And
I don't think many. Yeah, no. As soon as he hit it, he must have thought, "Oh, that's in." Yeah, that's a goal. Yeah,
I don't think many keepers would have saved that, to be honest. And it was such a quick reaction from Rye. He was already moving as the ball was hit. Like, it was incredible. He read it so well. And Minty, would have been probably gutted to not see that hit the back of the net. But I think it was a great cameo from him. I think he did really well when he came on, and he'll be looking to build on that. It's really important he does. I know it's a different kettle of fish when you're playing away at the Emirates with spaces to exploit. Obviously, if Arsenal were going forward for that second goal, it's perhaps a bit easier to burst away from your man and try and find a shot than it is against the West Ham or a Burnley that will obviously be sitting quite deep, you'd imagine. So it's a completely different proposition. But I feel like if he plays the way that he was and getting into those positions, then I think he's got to start this match, I think.
Yeah, and Mitoma as well. He should be fit again to start. It's those 2 players for Brighton, Minte and Mitoma. When Herzella was planning his season, he must have sat back and just thought, I'm sorted. I've got Mitoma and Minte on each flank. They're going to probably get 10 goals each this season, or all things being equal. Then you're going to have Ruter and Danny Welbeck, and those 2 there. But it just hasn't worked out, has it? Mitoma was sort of a little bit off the pace at the start, then picked up his injury. And Minte, those wide positions, Herzella must have thought he was in good shape there, but it just hasn't. Those 2 players just haven't delivered, have they?
No, I think Mitoma's been a big loss this season.
Yeah,
he's barely played, obviously due to injury and illness, and even as you mentioned, he was not in form at the start of the season. And it's a shame, because obviously he's such a quality player, and on his days he's a difference maker. And Brighton have just not had that this season, so they've had to kind of fill that gap in other ways. They've had to put Diego Gomez out there, and that's perhaps not his best position.
Mm-hmm.
We've seen kind of various different
options
that Hurst has gone with to try and fill that gap and to shift things around, and he hasn't really found a perfect solution when Mitoma's not there, to be honest. And it's difficult for the other players to form relationships, partnerships without a regular player ahead of you, because we saw some real glimpses of what Kadioglu and Mitoma could be about in the early stages of the season, and obviously that wasn't something which they could keep doing throughout the season. And that's a really important part of football as well, is those little partnerships and relationships and knowing what your teammates are going to do. So that's probably been an issue as well. And obviously, as we've seen, Minter being kind of in and out of form on the right flank as well. So yeah, no, it hasn't really gone to plan. I think that it definitely is such an important part of the game for Brighton is those wingers positions and causing chaos and for fullbacks as well. So hopefully, if Mitoma can recover from this illness and the injury that he's had, he could be a really important player in the second half of the season, because we know what he's all about on his day. He's one of the most exciting players to watch in the Premier League.
Yeah. And just finally, Sam, it has been a poor run for Brighton. No win in 5, 2 points from the last 15. But you look at the table, and it's still so tight, isn't it? The Premier League table, and a couple of good wins is going to lift Brighton up the table, and things are going to look rosy if they can get those on the board. Do you still think there seems to be a bit of negativity around at the moment? Do you still think there should be more optimism and a bit more backing for Herzella and his team at the moment?
Yeah, I can see both sides. I can understand the frustration. I can understand the discontent. And obviously, you go 5 without a win. Because it's difficult, isn't it? Because it's all about results at the end of the day. Because everything was so rosy when they won 2-0 away at Nottingham Forest. Obviously, we were there, and it was a great atmosphere. And it's just all got a bit wrong since then. And it kind of all stemmed from that chaotic game against Aston Villa. Where Brighton were obviously 2-0 up, and they managed to lose that match, and that seemed to have just knocked everyone's confidence a little bit. But if you look at that in isolation, Aston Villa have won 11 matches in a row now. In all competitions, they're right up there challenging for the title. So it's probably
and then
not
losing then away at Liverpool and then away at Arsenal. Probably,
exactly.
You know, it's not a surprise, is it, if you lose away?
No, they would have liked to have beaten West Ham at home. Obviously, that was a disappointment.
West Ham and Sunderland.
Sunderland as well, but Sunderland had a really strong season with a really good squad. So it's a really tough run of games they've had, really. So that's why they need to be looking at the next two as huge games. And I think if you drop points,
games, doesn't it?
If you had to drop points against West Ham and then Burnley, and then you've got Man City next, and then Bournemouth and Fulham and Everton, and suddenly things can look a lot worse. So I feel like at the moment there's no need to panic. But yeah, just I think all focus needs to be on these next two games, and 6 points are a must. I think just to get the juices flowing, the goals coming back, and things will be all good again. But we know football's a very fickle business, isn't it? So a couple of results, everyone's happy again.
Yeah. And just looking ahead, Sam, what do you think? What's your prediction for against West Ham? I think it's going to be a sort of nutritional game where it's going to be sort of like a 1-0 or 1-1. It's one that West Ham have to win as well, isn't it? So they're going to be, it's not going to be an easy game. I think it's going to be quite. I'm going for a 1-1 personally.
A 1-1. I'm going to be optimistic and say Brighton are due a win. They're due. They've got to win. They've got to win eventually after all this time. So I feel like a 2-1, but it's going to be edgy. It's going to be nervy. But I think Danny Welbeck, he hasn't got one for a while. He's gonna get the winner. He
does quite well against West Ham, doesn't he? Well, Brighton's record generally against West Ham has been pretty good, so hopefully that can continue. But thanks for that, Sam. Thanks for going all through that. Keep up to date with everything at Brighton & Hove Albion on the Sussex World website, where we have all the team news and previews ahead of the game against West Ham. And then we'll also be at the West Ham game with the player rating to the action as well. So thanks again, Sam.